Good morning. Hi, I'm Kathleen Taylor, and I'm the co-host for Vantage and also the licensed clinical social worker providing mental health counseling at the medical center. So today is our 5th show on coping with the coronavirus, the pandemic, whatever we're calling it. And as it has been, my co-host, Marcia Boyles, is going to be here. Here she is, by Zoom. You Zoomed in.
I Zoom in. Golly, that's a feeling to Zoom in. Yes, I'm here virtually again, Kathleen, and as you see, is our program. I'm in series.
Yeah, and we're going to have maybe some technical difficulties here. I'm not sure whether you're coming through, but you're a little broken up, so I'm thinking that they're going to be able to work on that.
Yes.
In process.
I'm getting some intermittent. Let me begin by just a little bit of background. Kathleen, that I think might be pertinent here. When we first started this series was on the April. I had done in preparation for that a small survey of 50 residents, asked how they were coping with the isolation and down. And we got back some really interesting strategies people were using, ideas for things that they were doing and other residents might do. And we talked about those in several of them. Now, preparation for this program today, I sent out 5 days ago a similar kind of request of the same resident and got back what I would consider to be considerably less full and energetic kinds of these coping. One resident who was at the pessimistic end of the spectrum said she felt a little like a hamster on an exercise, just going round and round, not getting any, couldn't beginning or ending, and was a bit worried. So today, I had the sense was somewhat representative of the other residents. Today, I hope you will tell us sort of where we are with things in your estimation and how we best improve our system.
Right. Well, you're exactly right. We just have been going through all of these different kinds of phases. That's what I'm calling them, is right now I think I feel like we're at phase 3 right now in our stages of the pandemic. The first stage was the one where I think you had sent out the surveys initially, and people had all kinds of ideas about how they were going to survive whatever this isolation period was going to look like. I think it felt like an adventure to people. I think a challenge maybe. Their energy was up. They felt like they were up for the challenge. All the things they had planned to do, maybe the things they planned not to do. They were just going to have this long vacation, and it was all going to be fun. So then we had talked about what I said was stage 2, which was kind of the "are we there yet" phase, which is, I feel like I'm kind of, starting to tire out a little bit. I'm running out of ideas. I'm really kind of tired of all these things to do to survive the pandemic. I think I'm ready for it to be over with. And now we are right now at stage 3. And stage 3 is, I think, a little bit of desperation is sinking in here. I think we've gone from fatigue to exhaustion in terms of people's energy level. It's kind of, will it ever end?
Yes, not even I want to think about to do because I haven't said what.
Don't have the energy for it, absolutely right. And I think that's where we are now, and that's where I want to start, when things seem so out of control for people, and they've given a lot of energy to persevere and to get through this as positively as they can, and they feel like they are running out of steam, and they really don't feel like they've necessarily been successful in any kind of way, you start to get those feelings of helplessness and hopelessness. You start to feel, that you're not enough, that you might not be up to the challenge, you're not adequate, that you're failing in some kind of way. And so I want to address that with people that are watching, those feelings of just being exhausted. You don't have any more energy left for this, and yet it's continuing, and yet we don't know how long it's going to be before it's over with in any kind of real sense of the word. The reality is we are all suffering in our own ways, struggling with all of the things that are part of this this pandemic, loneliness, the uncertainty. I think we're really just face to face with the uncertainty, the unknown of life. So what do we need now? What do we need now? I think we need a hug.
Yes. I have to always remember that states always each other, and without physical contact and without, being able to talk to each other. This is the thing that all the residents that responded said the same thing. I miss talking to my friends. I miss having dinner with I miss being with people.
Yep, that's what we miss. We miss somebody just giving us a hug, either a physical hug or a verbal hug, just saying, hey, it's going to be okay. I know exactly what you're going through. This is not fun, but it's going to be okay, whatever. And so that's what I want to talk about in terms of we can give these things to other people for sure. I think sometimes we find it harder to give that self-empathy, self-compassion, understanding to ourselves. For whatever reason, I think it's a little bit harder to do. And I guess because we really, struggle to give ourselves a physical hug, even though you can, and it's actually supposed to be pretty helpful. We have to start thinking about how we provide ourselves with empathy and compassion in these times, that we can say to ourselves that this is a moment of suffering, that suffering is part of life, and to say, can I be kind to myself and not judge or criticize, but just give yourself the compassion that you need right now. And so that's what I want to start thinking of, helping people think about is, what does that mean to give compassion and empathy to yourself? What is that like? And I have a nice quote from a psychologist who's very involved with the self-compassion as a therapeutic and holistic approach. Having compassion for yourself means that you honor and accept your humanness. Things will not always go the way you want them to. You will encounter frustration, losses will occur, you will make mistakes. Bump up against your limitations, fall short of your ideals. This is the human condition, a reality shared by all of us. The more you open your heart up to this reality, instead of fighting against it, the more you will be able to feel compassion for yourself and all the fellow humans in your life. And that's a pretty important thing to realize, that the compassion that you might feel for other people, you need to feel for yourself too, because they fit together. If we can identify with others, we need to be able to identify with our own struggling too.
The very notion that we deserve our own compassion, I think we don't normally or think about. And that's quite resonating now.
Right. Well, I think that, we had talked about this before, that our residents are people who have strove their entire life to be successful, and they have been successful. And part of how you motivate yourself, to go forward a lot of times is to do some of that kind of tough talk. Come on, you can do it. That's not that bad. Let's just move ahead. Let's think of going forward, and those things work during the times when you have more control over what's happening to you. But right now, I think is a time where we can't deny that our reality is not in our control. And that we are all experiencing emotions that are distressful, that we are suffering with the experiences of our life as not the way that we want it to be. And I think that that's part of the idea of showing compassion, is to sort of understand that your life may not always be the way you want it to be, and that you might not always be able to be the person that you want to be, but that's okay. That is part of life. Our limitations, our frustrations, those are part of life. So I think that in talking about being more empathetic towards ourselves, I think it is kind of realizing that those motivating thoughts that we used to use that would keep us going and keep us moving forward may sound kind of like criticism or kind of judgmental now, might end up feeling in your head like, what's the matter with you that you can't do better? And that's where I'm really asking people to change that, as I said, voice in your head, and have it be the voice of your best friend, or a loving parent, or a respected mentor, somebody who really helped you over the hard times. Let that be the words that you hear. Let that be the sound that you provide for yourself at this time.
Yes, and I think it's true, Kathleen, that all of us, we have who are down in the midst of all this, them a little rough. But you're saying to do this also yourself.
Yeah, I think that it's the idea in particular of not judging not only, whether you feel like you're doing good or not good, kind of really trying to not see things in terms of this is a good thing, this is a bad thing, but just, really kind of embracing the idea that life is all of the above. And your life is not just valuable when you're doing well and that things are going the way that you want them to be going. Your life has value and purpose and meaning at any moment in time. And that is what you have to be willing to kind of change your perspective a little bit, because we are so forward-looking most of the time. I think I said before, I've had people that have said sort of that they feel like their life is on hold. And I thought about that, and I certainly agree that it feels like you're waiting for something to happen. But when you start to think a little bit more about being in the moment, life is happening right now. You're not waiting for anything. It's happening. And how you respond right now in the moment is your life. And I think that that's another thing that, this is our civilization, this is our society, our culture, moving forward, looking ahead, planning for what's next. And here we are now plopped into, a place and time where a lot of that isn't possible. And it's pretty frustrating, I think, for people. So accepting that, being in that place, I've put some quotations in from this psychologist because I like some of the things that she says so much. She suggests, rather than wandering around in problem-solving mode, which is kind of the normal way that we are all day, thinking about what you want to fix about yourself or your life, pause for a moment to be amazed at what's not broken. And you might find that there are a lot of things that don't need fixing and that are perfectly fine the way they are. I know I had come across a term, it's a Japanese term, it's called wabi-sabi, and it means perfectly imperfect. And it's so good, you know, and I try to think about it all the time, because, you know, if you think about nature, if you think about, you know, the things that you see that, you know, are just perfect the way they are, you know, they're not symmetrical. They might be rough, they might be, you know, they might be any number of things that wouldn't be the words that you would use to talk about when you were talking about perfection, but somehow they all fit together and it makes sense. And that's what we want to be thinking about now, is just the fact that we're still able to find happiness in the imperfections of our life right now, and meaning and purpose and all of those things that we're looking for.
That about sums it up.
At least it's a start, right?
Yeah. No, I think that quickly just.
Yeah, I know that this is a little bit more philosophical than a lot of times people want to hear from me, because they do like to sort of hear specifics, like do this, you know, this is going to work if you do this. Well, I'm working against myself right now, because I think I'm asking people to embrace the uncertainty, not look for the answers, and be able to be there to see for themselves what makes sense. So that's going to be a little bit of a stretch assignment for people that are listening today as well.
Well, as you and I have mentioned in this program before, this group of residents in Spring, I think, have particularly been particularly goal oriented probably all of their lives. Mm-hmm. You know, most of us have worked in this area, and you know, we wanted to accomplish, and most of us did. This is antithetical to the approach most of us have taken all of our working lives.
Yep, that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm asking people to do things that they have not done, and that I'm asking them to stop doing things that have always been successful for them, which is kind of the conundrum there too, because it doesn't feel, you know, it's like if I do more of what I used to do, I just have to do it harder. I just have to do it stronger, and then it's going to work out. But in this case, what I'm saying is that's probably not going to be the reality right now. The reality is to kind of embrace what you can't control. I wanted to talk, you know, this whole thing started out, it was going to be about self-care, remember? Yeah, I was going to talk about self-care, and it was going to sound more like these are the things that you do to care for yourself. And then when I was thinking about self-care, you know, that was like, you know, kind of mechanical. It was like, these are the things, you know, you eat right, you exercise, you do all these things, and that's going to be how you express care for yourself. And I wanted to change the word. I wanted to change the word to self-caring. That you are doing things that nourish and nurture yourself. And so yes, of course, you're doing the things that are good for you. You're exercising, you're eating right, you're sleeping right. But I think that we're flipping the switch a little bit on this, because I think a lot of times when people think about self-care, it's these are the things I have to do. I should do these things. These are the things that I've heard are good for me. And what I want people to think about when they think about self-caring is the idea of nurturing and nourishing yourself. That you're doing things for yourself to help you, your body, to feel cared for, so that you can continue to thrive and grow.
Your body, your psyche.
Pardon?
Your body and your psyche.
All of the above. All of the above. It really is about thinking about things in terms of, I think people, especially now, the idea of exercising, for example, talked about this a little bit in terms of just the fatigue of doing things, is that it feels like you really have that little bit of I don't want to feeling right now. I don't want to. No, you don't have to, and that's okay. And sort of our compassion towards ourselves is understanding. Yeah, that's a feeling that is understandable right now. A lot of people just want to curl up in a ball and wait for things to be over with. But the idea that taking care of your body is a way to show love and compassion, to nurture. So imagine yourself. I hope this isn't a stretch for people and it doesn't sound weird, but as a caring parent, as somebody, or a loving friend, what would you want to do for yourself in terms of sort of recognizing, that bag of Oreos, might feel good in the moment, but it's really going to make you sick in a little while. So is there something that you can do that would make you feel more like you're nourishing yourself? And that's going to allow you to feel better in the long run. So, because I think that another thing that happens is that this idea of self-compassion, self-caring, could be interpreted as self-indulgence, that you just get to do whatever you want to do and it doesn't matter. And I want to definitely kind of clear people's heads about that in terms of that it, self-caring, self-compassion doesn't mean that you you kind of let yourself go, but it's just acknowledging that it doesn't have to be perfect, but it does have to make you feel good in some kind of way that you feel is sustaining. I guess I'm going to say sustaining. To sustain your life, to sustain the feeling that you are someone who is valued. You value yourself. You value your body. You value your mind. All of those things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely does. As opposed to self-indulgent,
Right. That's the bag of Oreos. Which I love, but so another thing that I think is a good, we've talked about this before, but it's the idea of your personal narrative, your personal story, and that definitely fits into the idea of accepting yourself kind of warts and all. I think that sometimes when people think about their personal narrative, they kind of they want it to be their successes. It ends up a lot of times sort of starting out as their resume of things that they accomplished in their life, and they leave out kind of the other things, the kind of the messy parts, the parts where they weren't so successful, the parts where they maybe tried something and failed. But that's part of your story too, and actually that's some of the better parts, because you don't necessarily know, if you stay on one path the whole time, you don't know, you might know where you're going to end up, but is it where you really want to be? So the idea of, the path not taken, how that failure, that presumed failure ended up bumping you, into a totally different direction, and then all of a sudden this whole new world opened up for you. So I think this is a good time to think about that, because it maybe gives a little perspective on what we're going through now, because we do want to be able to think about, what's at the end of the tunnel. When the light comes at the end of the tunnel, whatever that looks like, that it will be good to have known that, you have in your life gone through all of these ups and downs. This too is an up and down time for sure. We're going to make mistakes. Definitely we're going to make mistakes. And again, responsibility is part of self-compassion, that we are going to take responsibility for our mistakes. But along with that, there's self-forgiveness, that we're going to forgive ourselves too. And at this time, I think, being able to, if it doesn't feel good to have to say that you're struggling, that you're suffering, then forgive yourself for that. That it's okay to be feeling that way. Moving forward from the compassion and the empathy that you're feeling towards yourself, of course, we want to start thinking about others in our lives, or others, all of humankind. I think, to have that empathy and compassion for all of humankind, because we are all struggling at the same time. And I know it's kind of a cliche catchphrase right now, but we are all in it together.
And I think the other component of that, Kathleen, is the fact that people do feel extremely grateful to be here, not being worried about having a job or having a meal because you don't have food. Our basic are all taken care of very well.
Right, and that's true, and that's good, and that is something to feel gratitude towards. I think that sometimes people do tend to think, why should I be feeling like I'm suffering right now? Because I do have all of these things. But human emotion, is not quantifiable. And so, the fact that you're suffering in other ways, even though you don't have to worry about having food, which is we're all thankful for, the suffering is nonetheless real, and that's another thing that we want to not discount our own experience. That's part of self-compassion as well. But compassion, here's my last quote from the self-compassion expert. Compassion involves the recognition and clear seeing of suffering. It involves feelings of kindness for people who are suffering so that the desire to help emerges. And finally, compassion recognizes our shared human condition, flawed and fragile. And that, that's so important, because this experience has leveled us. This has leveled us all in a way where we all see how we are struggling together, and I think that's something that's valuable for us to remember as we do get back into a more usual way of seeing things. Though again, I don't think it's going to be happening for a long time. So I guess I have to end. All things end, definitely me, and I have to end quick because I'm running out of time. To be able to see hope in the future, to see that there are opportunities for positive change and positive growth. That I had said before, studies show that people that go through these kinds of experiences do come out having learned things and having developed more resiliency, and certainly, as we were talking about, more of a connection to other people, and a more of an ability to appreciate and empathize with what other people are experiencing. So,
Kathleen, could I interrupt just very, very briefly and say that we now have a email address, a Vantage email address.
Mm-hmm.
The studio will put up on the bottom. If you have questions, if you have comments, if you have suggestions for things you'd like to see discussed on the Vantage Point program, please mail us at this address, and this address also is on the scroll.
Right. That's right, and we'll welcome that. So, last words. I know that they're just shaking their head at me, but this is important. Remember that happiness is not dependent on things being exactly as how we want them to be, or ourselves being exactly as we'd like to be. Rather, happiness comes from loving ourselves and our lives exactly as they are, knowing that the joy and pain, strength and weakness, glory and failure are all essential to the full human experience. So
Very nice.
Yeah, with that, all the best for the people out there, and keep calm and carry on.